For centuries, Europe was a symbol of progress. Innovation, military power, art, even the global economy. It all revolved around this continent. But today, many analysts agree, Europe is heading toward a crisis. And more surprisingly, the root of the problem lies in its people. Let's take a closer look. Why is Europe's economy falling so far behind the United States, and even some countries in Asia? In the 18th and 19th centuries, Europe became the centre of extraordinary global change. The Industrial Revolution, which began in Britain, marked a massive transition from agrarian societies to industrial ones. The steam engine was invented, and soon factories began to spring up across Europe, ushering in an era of unmatched economic growth. Britain, France, and Germany, the major industrial powers, were not only rich and powerful nations, but also centres of ideas and progress for the entire world. This was a time when Europe wasn't just the birthplace of grand ideas, but the very ground where social and economic revolutions unfolded. Even as the United States began to rise rapidly in the 20th century, Europe remained at the forefront of global power. European nations continued to innovate in manufacturing, technology, and military strength, maintaining their position as global powerhouses. And although America began to assert new dominance in many areas, especially after World War II, Europe never truly collapsed. With deep-rooted foundations, European countries managed to rebuild and rise again with renewed strength. Entering the 2000s, Europe took another bold step by forming the European Union. More than just an economic alliance, the EU became a symbol of Europe's effort to unite countries that once stood on opposing sides. At the same time, the euro was introduced, further solidifying Europe's economic integration and raising hopes that the continent could emerge as an even greater economic force. At that moment, the world believed Europe could lead in international collaboration, finance, and the global economy. Its industrial strength, technological capabilities, and increasingly coordinated monetary policy gave the impression that Europe was poised to remain a major player in the global economic arena. The European Union seemed to unite vast potential, a force to maintain Europe's influence in the modern world. But in the eastern part of the world, a new economic powerhouse was rapidly emerging: China. Since the early 1990s, China began an extraordinary transformation, from an agrarian nation to an undeniable industrial force. With steady economic growth and aggressive industrial expansion policies, China managed to surpass many European countries in production and exports. The Chinese government crafted an economic strategy focused on infrastructure, mass manufacturing, and remarkable improvement in workforce quality, propelling the nation into a dominant role in global trade. At the same time, the United States did not stand still. It further strengthened its position through rapid technological innovation, most visibly in Silicon Valley, with tech giants like Apple, Google, and Tesla leading the digital revolution. America continued to dominate global markets through breakthroughs in information technology, hardware, and software. These innovations didn't just change the world, they reinforced America's leadership in the digital economy. But amid all this global transformation, Europe began to feel the impact. While America and China moved swiftly and aggressively, Europe, though still powerful, struggled to keep pace. Despite having solid infrastructure and large consumer markets, European nations started to fall behind in terms of economic growth and technological innovation. As China continued its rapid rise through targeted industrial policies, and the US maintained its edge with relentless tech innovation, Europe appeared to be losing its competitive advantage. China not only caught up with, but even surpassed many European nations in industrial output and export capacity. Meanwhile, the US, with massive investments in R&D and tech leadership, further cemented its position as the world's #1 economic power. Today, only 2 countries truly lead the global economy, the United States and China. Europe, while still a major economic force, now finds itself lagging behind in many critical areas, from innovation and production to influencing global markets. Nominally, Germany remains the 3rd largest economy in the world. The UK and France also still hold their positions within the global top 10. But when we look at the trends, their growth is stagnating. And in recent years, these major European powers have started falling behind, not only compared to China, but also to the United States. Want proof? The combined market valuation of America's 5 biggest tech companies, Apple, Amazon, Meta, Nvidia, and Microsoft, now rivals the entire GDP of Germany. Just think about that. 5 tech companies, born out of digital innovation and consumer technology, have grown to match the market value of a traditional. To put things into clearer perspective, by 2024, the combined valuation of these 5 tech giants was estimated to exceed $8 trillion. In contrast, Germany's GDP, while strong and stable, stood at around $4.5 trillion. This illustrates a striking imbalance between the tech-driven global economy, led by the US, and Europe's traditional industrial base. This isn't just about large numbers, it's a symbol of a massive shift in how the world operates. The United States, through these tech companies, isn't just a center of innovation. It holds the reins of the global digital economy, which has now surpassed traditional industry in dominance. Meanwhile, Europe, though still a major economic force, is struggling to keep up with the pace of this transformation. Europe, despite its continued strength in manufacturing and industry, lacks a comparable presence in the tech sector. Big European companies like SAP or Siemens are influential in their fields, yes, but they don't come close to matching Apple, Microsoft, or Amazon in terms of market value or global influence. Does this mean Europe has lost its position as a global economic powerhouse? Not necessarily, but these numbers speak loudly. The digital economy and technological innovation now play a far more dominant role than traditional industries. These American tech giants function like global engines, not only driving the economy, but shaping how the world connects, works, and interacts. Take the automotive sector, for example. Europe has long been known as the heart of the global car industry. Brands like Volkswagen, Mercedes, and BMW are iconic names that have defined the automotive world for over a century. But when the electric vehicle revolution began gaining momentum, who took the lead? Not Europe, but rather China and the United States. These countries moved far more aggressively in adopting and developing electric vehicle technology, while Europe lagged behind in adapting to this transformation. Tesla, an American company, has become the global leader in electric vehicles. With consistent innovation in battery technology, vehicle design, and charging infrastructure, Tesla has captured a market share far exceeding that of European automakers. By 2023, the Tesla Model 3 and Model Y were the best-selling EVs in the world. In contrast, European automakers, even Volkswagen, which has made serious efforts to catch up with models like the ID.3 and ID.4, continue to fall short. In 2023, Volkswagen sold fewer than 300,000 electric vehicles in Europe, while Tesla sold over 1 million EVs globally. As a result, Volkswagen and other European car makers have faced major setbacks, including factory closures and mass layoffs. In 2023, Volkswagen announced it would shut down several plants in Germany due to declining sales and increasing difficulty competing with Tesla and Chinese manufacturers. This is a stark illustration of how Europe has struggled to adapt to rapid market changes. Meanwhile, China has successfully dominated the EV market with brands like BYD and NIO. BYD, originally a battery manufacturer, has grown into one of the world's largest EV producers. In 2023 alone, BYD sold over 1.8 million electric vehicles, making it the biggest EV company in the world. In China, electric vehicles have become part of everyday life, fueled by substantial government subsidies that accelerated the shift to cleaner transport and reduced reliance on fossil fuels. While some European countries, like Norway, led in EV adoption, the continent as a whole is still struggling to keep up with the pace set by China and the US. What's happening in the automotive sector is a clear reflection of broader trends across Europe. A lack of innovation and slow adaptation to new technologies is making it harder for European companies to remain competitive. The world is changing fast, and those who can't keep up with that change risk being left behind. So, is this the end of Europe as a global power? Not necessarily. In fact, there is still hope. But to rise again, Europe must be willing to change and take bold leaps across multiple sectors. The first step is major investment in education and workforce retraining. In the midst of rapid industrial transformation, the skills in demand are changing just as fast. Europe needs to prepare the next generation with expertise in high-tech fields like AI, robotics, and renewable energy. According to 2023 OECD data, over 40% of workers in Europe are employed in sectors that could be heavily affected by automation and digitalization. That's why reskilling the workforce is crucial to ensure they remain relevant in a rapidly evolving global job market. Some European countries, like Germany and Sweden, have already begun implementing large-scale upskilling programs to prepare for Industry 4.0. Next, Europe must throw its full support behind emerging tech sectors. This isn't just about keeping up with global trends. It's about ensuring Europe can compete on the world stage in renewable energy and artificial intelligence. In 2023, Europe remained a global leader in green energy investment, with the EU allocating over €500 billion to support renewable energy projects like wind, solar, and green hydrogen. In Germany alone, the renewable energy sector provided over 300,000 jobs, and the number is expected to grow, despite rising competition from China and the United States. But even with this massive potential, everything hinges on one crucial factor: political will. Without strong policy to support the transition to green energy, digitalization, and advanced tech, Europe will struggle to close the gap. Political leaders must be ready to allocate significant funding and resources, and make tough, even unpopular decisions for the sake of long-term sustainability. This is why political awareness among European policymakers is so essential. Some countries are making progress with Green New Deal-style initiatives and energy transition policies, but others remain stuck, dependent on fossil fuels and slow to adapt to the demands of a digital future. If Europe wants to remain a global power, its leaders must act boldly, putting innovation and sustainability at the centre of their development strategy. If Europe can pull off this transformation, not just economically but socially and politically, it has a real chance to thrive again. With green technology, artificial intelligence, and a reimagined education system, Europe can rise to meet global challenges and reclaim its place as a leading force, guiding the world toward a more sustainable and progressive future. But none of this will happen without the courage to innovate and change. Without decisive action, Europe will continue to fall behind. But if it chooses to move forward with vision and determination, the future of Europe could still be very bright. Europe once changed the world, but that golden era won't last forever. The world is moving fast, and if Europe can't keep up, it will fall behind. Now is not the time for nostalgia. It's time to wake up and innovate. Because as Draghi said, if we stick to the old agenda, we'll be out of the market and maybe out of history.